Good afternoon. Sorry for the brief but very worthy interlude that we have today. I want to say thank you to the Crown Prince, Royal Highness Crown Prince Mohammad bin Salman, Crown Prince of Bahrain, and the Prime Minister of Bahrain, Prince Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa. Good to see you again. Thank you very much. Congratulations. President Sarkisian's here as well. I didn't know you were visiting. Nice to see you. Congratulations are in order for the 5th anniversary. I think we should give a big round of applause. It was a lot of work to make this happen in 2021, yes? There's a lot to be said about sitting side by side, face to face, whether it's a hand fist or an elbow bump, and having that dialogue. And I know it took a lot of effort with the Middle East Green Initiative, the Saudi Green Initiative, and back-to-back with, of course, the FII. No longer called the Davos on the desert. It stands on its own 2 feet. I thought it was very interesting that we had the program, the first public program, said at this time of the day, there'll be a special guest, but we didn't reveal who it was. I thought, who's that going to be? As it turned out, I got a nice call to be able to do the Prime Minister of Greece, Kyriakos Mitsotakis. Let's bring him to the stage for a one-on-one interview. Thank you, John. Good to see you. We live a lot in this region, although I've just recently moved back to London on optics. This is, I think, interesting that the Greek Prime Minister is here in the Middle East. You had bilateral meetings with His Royal Highness Mohammed bin Salman, with the Crown Prince of Bahrain. What does it tell us before we get into the development and the rebuilding campaign in Greece about strategic relations between the heart of the Mediterranean and the Gulf? What do you think you can build on here after the visit?
Well, first of all, Your Royal Highnesses, thank you so much for having me at this very, very interesting gathering. But it should not be a surprise that the Greek Prime Minister has strong ties with the Gulf region. After all, we live in the same broad neighborhood. We share the same geopolitical challenges, and since I took over as Prime Minister, one of my main priorities in terms of foreign policy was to reestablish strong ties with the Gulf. It is my second visit to Saudi Arabia, and I think we're at the beginning of forging a very strong strategic partnership between our two countries, which has many different aspects, geopolitical, but also economical. So I'm very excited to be here. We had a very, very interesting discussion with His Royal Highness, and I think a lot of good things are going to come out of this visit for both our countries.
Is it a natural affinity? I know you have deep relations with the UAE. This is the largest economy in the Middle East and North Africa. From an investment standpoint, strategic alliance also for the Eastern Mediterranean, how do you see it?
Well, the Eastern Mediterranean is a region of common interest, and Greece finds itself with Cyprus on the outer edge of the European Union. We have done a lot of work to convince Europe regarding the strategic importance of the Eastern Mediterranean with regards to migration, with regards to energy, with regards to geopolitical stability. And the broader stability of the area is a common concern to all of us. We have committed to the protection of the kingdom through a Patriot battery, which we have deployed together with other allies, and we can certainly further strengthen this strategic partnership because at the end of the day, countries that promote stability, international law, respect for the law of the seas. At the end of the day, these are the guiding principles which lead us forward.
I wasn't going to begin here, but I think with the presence of His Royal Highness and the Crown Prince of Bahrain, it's very interesting to leap into the Eastern Mediterranean. Could it be, if you get the development right, a counterbalance to Russia's influence with natural gas into the European Union? But this is the window of opportunity, is it not? So you have a security pact with France, a major move. The U.S. renewed its security agreement with Greece, another major move. You're building the alliances here in the Gulf. Is it time to move to development of the natural gas, and can you really fend off Turkey's desire to encroach in that territory as a result?
Very much so. I'm glad you point out that we signed two very important strategic partnerships over the past month. A strategic partnership with France and a 5-year defense and cooperation agreement with the United States. At the same time, we are looking at the energy situation in Europe with the spikes in the prices of natural gas. And we should be telling ourselves what is the logical way to diversify our supply of natural gas. And I do believe, as most of my European colleagues, that natural gas will be a transition fuel for the foreseeable future. So if that is the case, how can we leverage supplies of gas in the Eastern Mediterranean and the Middle East? And there are various ideas that have been put forward. It could be a pipeline, the EastMed pipeline that brings gas directly from Cyprus, from Egypt, from Israel to Greece, or it could be liquefied natural gas that can be transported to Egypt, liquefied and regasified in Greece, where we have the capacity to supply not just the Greek gas network, but also the European gas network. So this is stage one. Stage two would be to promote our electricity interconnections. We've signed an agreement with Egypt, but I'm sure there's also going to be a lot of interest in terms of extending these types of agreements also with Saudi Arabia. If this area has the capacity to produce very cheap electricity from renewables, and I'm primarily referring to the sun, wouldn't it be of mutual interest to bring this electricity into the European market? So how do you do it? You build an interconnection either from Egypt or from Israel into Greece, and from Greece the electricity will move into the European market. And if we look further into the future, if we talk about hydrogen, hydrogen will need to find its way into the European market. So thinking ahead, Greece again is by virtue of our geography, very appropriately positioned as a transit country for all sources of energy. At the same time, what we're doing is to develop our own renewable capacity. We'll be shutting down all our coal plants, the latest by 2028. And we're investing heavily in renewables. And the new frontier for us, which is of great interest, and I'm sure also of great interest to possibly to investors from the region, is offshore wind, where we will be presenting a legal framework very soon in order to take advantage of the significant wind potential that we have in Greece when it comes to offshore
wind. Let's get to, I'd like to see if there's interest here in Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and other regional investors to come into the gas market. Do they see the same potential that you're seeing right now? Is this part of the discussion?
Most certainly, but our discussions covered many different fields, not just energy. I mean, the main case that I do want to make today is that the Greece of 2021 has no comparison to the Greece of the previous decade. We've gone through a very difficult period, a very deep financial crisis, as you know. But since our government took over, and in spite of COVID, and in spite of the geopolitical challenges vis-à-vis Turkey, we've implemented very significant reforms. We've lowered taxes. The investment climate is much more attractive, and we are attracting today significant amount of foreign investment, unprecedented amount of foreign investment. So I think Greece is right at the beginning of a long-term growth cycle, and I do want capital from this part of the world to be part of our success story. And we already see a lot of interest in many, many different sectors. Look at hospitality, for example, where we've always been leaders, but we need more high-end hospitality facilities. And this is a sector where there are also natural synergies between Greece and Saudi Arabia. We have the expertise. Saudi Arabia is looking to do incredible, very big things in the hospitality sector. So there's another area of possible cooperation where we can actually export, our know-how to a country that is just beginning, to scratch the surface of its potential when it comes to these types of investments.
You talked about FDI, and it's quite interesting. This framework of Greece 2.0, which is a revitalization plan. In my morning plenary session, we talked about rebuilding the social contract. And did you think you redefined Greece during what was a heck of a challenge with COVID-19? The discipline in Greece. People were quite surprised, the adherence to the legal frameworks that you put into place. But how does it change the image of Greece then as a destination with the security apparatus you have and the response to COVID-19, the reopening to tourism? Can you put those together?
We did extremely well during the first wave of the pandemic. We shut down the country very quickly. I was actually quite surprised. I mean, people really complied. We explained in very clear terms what we had to do. We needed to buy ourselves time to build up our ICU capacity and to strengthen our hospital system. We haven't done as well in the other phases of the pandemic, but overall, I think Greece is going to be a winner when the pandemic is over. We've managed to rapidly digitize the state. It's, I think, a big success that you can basically interact now with the state in many different services from your mobile phone, you know, cutting down bureaucracy, projecting the image of a new, more confident Greece. And I think people abroad are clearly noticing what is happening in Greece. If you look at our overall financial performance, in spite of the fact that we have high levels of debt, our borrowing costs are at record low. The economy is going to grow more than 6% this year, probably much more. We still don't know the exact numbers. We managed to open to tourists in a very disciplined manner. I think we've done very well in terms of our tourism season. We communicated very clearly, this is what you can do, this is what you cannot do. We were the leaders in terms of launching the EU digital certificate, which has been a huge success, not just in Europe. Many other countries have used this interface to certify your COVID status. We expect an even better year, obviously, next year. This year, we're probably going to be at 60, maybe 70% of what we were in 2019 in terms of revenues, which is above what we had budgeted. But next year should be a bumper year for Greece. And in terms of redefining the social contract, my mandate was all about jobs. I want to make sure I bring down unemployment, offer young Greeks the opportunity to live in their country. We have so many talented expats working in the Gulf region. And I'm happy when Greeks are mobile, but I'm happier when they return to their home country. And I think for the first time what we see is a reversal in the brain drain. A lot of talented Greeks who say, okay, I spent a decade abroad, but now is the right time to come back to Greece. Because for us, I think the real constraint is not necessarily going to be capital. I think there is a lot of interest, and I think we will have significant announcements also as far as capital deployment for the kingdom. It's human capital and how we make sure we give our young people the opportunities to live a better life. And one last point on this issue of the social contract. I think the reason why many foreign investors are looking at Greece, it's not just our geopolitical position, what we discussed before, or our beautiful beaches. It's also the people. We have incredibly talented young Greeks, very well educated, with competitive salaries. Although I do expect salaries to converge to the EU mean. So if this is a global battle for talent, I think Greece was not on the map until very recently, and we're making I think what is a credible comeback in our part of the region as a pillar of stability, of geopolitical stability, strong alliances with partners, new alliances with new partners, which frankly I think we had neglected in the past. At the same time, very active within the European Union, at the forefront of the change that needs to take place within the European Union. Just look at, for example, what we agreed last July. After COVID, borrowing 750 billion euros in total. Greece will receive 32 billion euros as a result of this package, what we call the RRF, the recovery.
That's a really large stimulus.
That's a lot of money it's a lot of money in objective terms, but it's certainly a lot of money for Greece. So for our job is to have mature projects with good returns for financial investors, and add public money, Greek money, European money, to private capital, leverage private capital, and really change the country.
If I may, it's interesting. We only have a few minutes left because you said tourism receipts are up 60 to 70% above 2019.
Not above, of 2019.
Okay.
19. So but if you look at August, for example, we were above 2019.
Yeah.
So I expect next year we will make up all the lost ground of COVID, and we could even exceed our 2019 numbers.
But beyond that, which is interesting, I always had this vision as a Greek American that you could be the financial capital of the Mediterranean, the trade capital of the region. And now we're seeing Pfizer, Volkswagen, Microsoft, some major names that are using it as a hub. I mean, is that the design here, that you can actually be a heart of a very large market if you get it right? Because you have this triangle of fiscal reforms, banking reforms, labor reforms, tax reforms. Is that your ambition here?
Yes. If you look at banking, for example, our banks were constrained by very high percentage of non-performing loans. We've addressed this problem. They're raising capital now on their own. So they have a growth story to tell. If you look at Greece as a trade center, the logistics opportunities, privatizing our ports, it is quicker to ship products to Central Europe from Greece than it is to go around Gibraltar and to go to Hamburg or Rotterdam. So you can't argue with geography. So, but again, in order for us to do that, we need, political stability, a reform-oriented government with credible partners, with sound fiscal policy, and with a friendly business environment. It's not really rocket science, but it takes a lot of work to actually get it done on the field.
Good. I'm not ever questioning your competency, but then I was looking at your pedigree. So you went to Harvard for undergrad, Stanford for graduate school, circled back to get your MBA, am I correct, at Harvard Business School. It's a pretty good pedigree. What's the next 2 years, because you've been in power for just over 2 years, that you want to get done here? And then
I can tell you these degrees don't necessarily prepare you for, dealing with a pandemic or the
or
challenges,
a debt crisis, right?
or the challenges of today's, governance, because we really have to govern. We have to do two things simultaneously. We have to deal with constant crisis, and they won't go away, and we have to govern at the same time and think long term. So yes, I'm Prime Minister for 2.5 years. I intend to see out my term. I think we've made a convincing case to win a second election in 2023, and we'll continue, pressing, full speed ahead with the reforms that we have envisioned. We have a very clear plan of where we want to see the country in 2030. We also have our own 2030 vision, and it is very ambitious. And provided the Greek people continue to place their trust in us, I'm sure we can deliver.
Well, final point in 30 seconds. The French Security Pact, the U.S. renewing the Security Pact, the alliance between Egypt, Israel, Cyprus, and Greece in the Eastern Med says a lot. For an investor that's looking, would you say there's not the threat of Turkey? We are secure. Our allies have stepped up?
Yes, we are secure. I don't think there is a geopolitical threat. And I think at the end of the day, Turkey will also realize that this aggressive posturing in the Eastern Mediterranean is not going to lead anywhere. So I think we've set up our alliances, we've drawn our lines very, very clearly, and I do hope that at some point Turkey will constructively engage with us to resolve the one main outstanding issue we have, which is the delimitation of our maritime zones. We agreed with Italy, we agreed with Egypt, based on international law. We're always open for dialogue, but we will not be intimidated, and we will not accept our sovereign rights to be compromised.
Good. The Prime Minister, of course, had the choice to give a 10-minute address or to sit down and have a much more in-depth, candid discussion. I'm glad you opted for the second, and thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.